8:49. Now, in his 30-year career at BP, John Browne rose from apprentice to chief executive, but his position as the boss of one of Britain's biggest companies came crashing down, really, when he tried to stop a national newspaper from revealing that he was gay.
He'd kept his sexuality a secret, fearing that he had no other choice in the macho world of the boardroom. Now, in his book, The Glass Closet, Lord Browne tells his story in the hope of helping others who find themselves in a similar situation. And he's with us now. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Did you ever think there would be a day where you would sit here talking to someone like us, perhaps so openly and in such a relaxed way about your sexuality?
Absolutely not. I think at the time I was running BP, I thought this would be a secret, a sort of semi-secret I'd keep forever. So what happened to me, the sort of cataclysmic end of my career with BP, opened up brand new chapters, and this is one. And I hope this chapter will help others to see in themselves things that they can do which make sure they don't repeat what I did.
I know it's really complicated and it involves childhood and upbringing and business and all sorts of things. Can you summarise why you decided not to come out publicly until you were outed?
Fear. I think fear of rejection by society, fear of rejection by the corporate, the rather conservative corporate environment, and corporate environments are still pretty conservative. So it was fear. And I think one overlay from my mother, which always said, she was a survivor from Auschwitz, she said, minorities are always persecuted when things turn down. And so just don't be a member of a minority. She'd obviously spoke from experience.
And that had been instilled in you from such an early age.
From the very beginning.
But actually what happened to you when it all came out in the end, it was completely out of your control, wasn't it? It must have felt frightening.
Absolutely, and for someone who's in business, who's been running things, when you're out of control, it's very frightening, because one thing you do learn about is control. And so when someone else is controlling your life, you're in a bit of a tailspin. But nonetheless, you're 3 days of a lot of news, and the day 4 you are, as it were, fish and chip paper. So life starts again.
So, I mean, you could have left this all behind, couldn't you, and carried on in business, and those 3 days of headlines disappear, and you go back to being you and privately. Instead, you've written a book called The Glass Closet. Why do you want to bring it out into the open again?
To help others. I'd like to do 3 things. One is make sure no one repeats my mistakes, and they were mistakes. Secondly, make sure that people can identify role models of people who came out, who lived not 2 lives, but 1 life. They were themselves at work, much as they were themselves at home, and succeeded. And thirdly, I wanted to write a letter to all the straight people in the world, which said, you know, just remember, most of you, almost everyone's straight, but there are some LGBT people around, and they need to be thought about. And you, as CEOs of big companies, can do some things to set the right tone in your company and get the right role models. It's one of the reasons I also put up a website to make sure that people could tell stories about themselves, so people could identify with those role models. I've called it glasscloset.org, not a very creative name, but one I hope which will be memorable.
Now, one of the things I'm assuming you were afraid of were people's reactions to the news that you're gay. What, in fact, have their reactions been?
Remarkably positive. When I was taken out, I suppose, I had hundreds and hundreds of letters from people who told me their own stories, from people, older men who'd been to jail. You know, before the Wolfenden report made homosexuality not criminal, to those who'd been roasted in the newspaper, straight people with stories of affairs and things like that, right across the spectrum. And I realised, actually, that I wasn't alone. And I also realised that I had friends, because I thought, actually, I might not have any friends after I finished coming out.
So how is life for you now?
It's great. I started again. I'm doing lots of business. I chair the Tate, which I adore. I write books. This is my 3rd book. I hope I can write another one. And I'm working for my 5th Prime Minister now, on and off. So all in all, it's pretty good. And to top it all off, I've got a great partner.
And on a sort of slightly away from business, politics, I mean, you know prime ministers, you've dealt with party leaders over the year. You know this business about Nick Clegg and leadership. As a leader in business, what do you think of the trouble he's in at the moment? I mean, can he reassert his leadership?
Well, he did something quite remarkable. Of course, he set up the first coalition government forever, I think, and a remarkable thing to do. But leaders always need to keep their eye on the plot, and leaders are never finished until they're finished.
Do you worry for his leadership at the moment?
I think it's up to him to be himself. And that's my advice to all leaders is remember, be yourself, and remember the people you're leading. Because after all, that's the purpose of leadership, much as it is in the glass closet. You need to remember that what you do affects a lot of people.
John Browne, thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning. John's book, The Glass Closet, is out now.